So what's up, everybody? It's great to see everyone made it in, and some new faces, some old faces. I love when we can all get together and everyone can bring their significant others, or some people brought some friends. It's a fun time. So I'm hopeful everyone has a good time tonight. We don't get the opportunity to have all of us get some insight like this, and so Adam, myself, and others are in the weeds every day of what's going on with every retailer that we do business with. From a financial perspective, from a merchandising perspective, from a real estate perspective. Not everybody is in the weeds like that, but they are our customers. They drive the bus for us. So we thought it was important to continue to educate everyone and give everyone some insight on what's really going on today in the retail world and what's going on with our tenants. So Adam did a great job introing Dana Telsey. So I think one of the first things, though, that I wanted to talk about is, Adam said retail analyst, and we've heard that before. Why don't you give some color for everyone, Dana? What is a retail analyst?
Yep. So I'll tell you a little bit about my background and how I got to be where I am. So I grew up in Manhattan, and my family had a bookstore on Madison Avenue, Madison and 51st. My grandfather was cash register number 1, my mom was cash register number 2, and I was cash register number 3. And basically it was always all about the customer, because who was going to come to my register versus my mom's versus my grandfather's, that's what it was about. And so I went to, and we meet everyone in apartment buildings in my family. So we lived on 66th and 3rd, and this man had a Cocker Spaniel, and he walked his dog with my sister, and it was Ron Barron. And so I worked on the buy side at Barron Asset Fund for 7 years before I went to the brokerage side and the sell side. And on the sell side, one of the differences between the two, the buy side, they invest money of mutual funds into different sectors and different segments. Ron was an expert in consumer, so I'm really fortunate to have mentors. I believe in mentors a lot, and I learned everything I know from Ron. So it took me 3 years to find a job on the brokerage side because I've known Ron since I'm 13, so sometimes you can't live where you grow up. So I went to the sell side and went to C.J. Lawrence and then to Bear Stearns as a retail analyst. And in my world, there's something called Institutional Investor Magazine that ranks the analysts. And I remember the first day I went in to all different people, and I said, so how do I become this ranked analyst? What do you have to do? Oh, you'll never be able to do it. There's too many people who've done it for so many years. And I said, oh no. So then you become ranked because if you call more and you write more. So what do? As a retail analyst, you analyze the quantitative and the qualitative. What makes retail companies tick? And to me, that's all about 3 things. It's about concept, execution, and management. How do you know a concept ticks? Is there innovative product? Because innovative product brings repeat customers. If you have the same old for too long, then guess what? You need to change. And innovation of product helps give you repeat customers, which makes a successful concept. Second, it's all about execution. And so I talk to the companies and you see what they do. And today what that driver is, it's about speed. And speed helps you manage inventory. And lastly, it's about management. And management today has to be able to interpret data to give them a vision. So when you sit down with retailers and you ask them, so what are you doing to innovate your product? How are you incorporating speed into your business model? And what are you doing to use data? Those are the key things. And for retail analysts, if you can figure out, well, you believe that this is going to make the difference in driving sales and driving earnings, then what you have is a winning concept. Or on the flip side, if you find that, wait, those answers don't make sense, then it's not a great concept. But it all comes from visiting stores and looking at websites. So as Adam said, I travel the world to look at stores. I travel the world to talk to salespeople and sales associates, because nothing can tell you more about the personality of a company and the will to win than being able to speak to sales associates.
Sounds like a fun job. You get to shop for a living?
Yeah, I shop for a living.
So who are your customers? Who are your customers that you're dealing with on a day-to-day?
So I talk about our business as a wedding cake. And the reason I call it a wedding cake is the bottom of the wedding cake is the research side. And so I have around 54 people in my company, and a lot of them have been with me a long time. 4 of them came with me from Bear Stearns when I left almost 13 years ago now. And so the bottom is the research, and so we publish research on all the different companies. Are the earnings growing? Are they slowing? What new initiatives are coming in place to drive the business? So a moment ago we were talking about DSW. And so I spoke to Roger Rollins, the CEO of DSW, this morning, because whether it's about their manicures, whether it's about shoe repair, or now Komodo Group that's being integrated in it, what are they going to do to drive the business? So research is one layer of the wedding cake. I have a banking portion of the business where companies go public, and they'll want to be able to get our research or my analysts following those companies. So we've taken companies public like Party City, like Burlington Stores, like Coty, like Hilton, and there's others that are upcoming that's very exciting. We have an advisory world. We advise a lot of the REITs in terms of what's happening with the retailers, who's growing, who's slowing, what they're doing with occupancy costs and rents. And then we have a hedge fund, a consumer long-short fund that we started 3 years ago that a person I've known for over 20 years runs. Then we have debt capital markets and also electronic trading. You need to have diversification in my world because the commission business today on Wall Street is compressed. So you can have all the knowledge you want, but if you can't have power to grow the business, you're not going to have a growing company. And like I said, my company thinks of itself as one team, one dream. We had our Christmas holiday party yesterday, and I couldn't be more thrilled at the turnout that people want to be together. And like you said, gossip is an issue everywhere. If you have people, there's gossip. But if we can all be on the same page, we have that will to win.
Awesome, that's great stuff. So I want to move to, what's going on in retail today. We read a lot of headline news, a lot of things going on. Can you unpack it and give us, in a little more concise so we can all digest, what's the scoop today? What is really happening in the retail landscape?
Change happens every day. When you think about retail, there isn't any category, any concept that isn't changing. And there's a couple reasons why. We think about this omni-channel world that we all live in, and how consumers today, if they want speed and seamless interaction, you have to be able to think about the fact that the first thing they see in the morning is their phones, and the last thing they see at night is their phones. And so how are you going to get a message across to them that, okay, Kohl's has these new, whether it's Nike, Adidas, or Under Armour, whether it's the new loyalty program that they put in their space to attract the customer. They're bringing someone and bringing categories and concepts that they want you in their store and to attract them to it. And they do this online, and they do that in the physical store. I was talking to Mary Dillon last week, who's the CEO of Ulta, and look what Ulta just had on November 17th, the Kylie launch. It was huge. So it's about getting interesting product. Also demographics. We have different demographics today, and they have different mindsets that they're used to and how they grew up. When you think about the millennials, who now are greater in number than the baby boomers, and they're going to turn out to be the wealthiest generation because they're going to inherit those dollars from their parents, what do? They're the sharing economy. They're about Uber and getting driven somewhere. So I think of retail today, it's an online channel and a physical channel. It's not either or. And when you open an online store, when you open a physical store, your online sales go up 20 to 30%. When you close a store, your online sales go down by 60%. And what you've been seeing lately is you're seeing an integration between the two that's more exciting. When I think about next year, what do I worry about? The word that starts with a T, which is tariffs. Every company I talk to, that's the biggest concern, because the end game of tariffs, and with all the consumption and goods that are brought in from China, 72% of all footwear, just over 40% of all apparel comes from China. But guess what? Factories today in China don't want to lose that U.S. business. And more of them today are willing to say, if these tariffs get expanded into other categories, we're going to share some of those costs. So yes, the costs go up for the consumer, but it's hard to replace China with other countries.
So that's 19, everyone here, I think in this room, and then, I'm very focused on it, and a lot of our tenants is what's going to happen in the balance of 18? Where do you see retail sales? How are we going to shake out? Are we going to wake up on December 26th and be happy, or are we going to wake up on December 26th and go, man, we got a rough start to the year?
We should be happy, and I'll tell you a couple of reasons why. Urban Outfitters just reported quarter-to-date sales last night, up 5%. American Eagle just reported sales 4/15. They came in up 8% on the same-store sales basis, with physical stores and online both showing positive increases. The consumer is very well prepared. They've got the money, wage increases, and tax benefits. We have more new categories that are working. It's cold outside. When it's cold outside, what are people buying? Coats, sweaters, and boots, and they are selling. It's no more a world where it's just active or, it's active and, because it's active and apparel. And yes, you are selling more technology too. But the ambiguous word that people talk to is experiences. And what does experiences mean today? Whether it's travel, whether it's Sky Zone, whether it's escape rooms, consumers have dollars to spend in the limited amount of time that they have goods and activities to spend on.
So right now, I think personally, one of the people who are doing digital amazing is Walmart. They're our largest tenant that we have in our portfolio. They've been eating up all these other companies. They bought Bonobos and Jet.com, and they keep growing. They seem to be a different company than they were 20 years ago when we first started investing in Walmart. What's going on in Walmart today?
Walmart's winning, and the reason they're winning is because they've transcended to today and tomorrow. And the reason why, they've bought companies that are basically changing the rules of retail. The purchase of Jet.com, big bucks in terms of what they spent on, but look what it's done. It's basically led them to change the name of their company. It used to be called Walmart Stores. No longer. It's called Walmart because they operate in all channels, in all regions, and frankly in all categories. The buying power that Walmart has allows them to compete against the Amazons of the world and their pricing power. And I think we're going to continue to see more big buying small. Because whether it's ModCloth or whether it's Bonobos, Walmart is different than Target. And frankly, Target a little bit more elevated than what a Walmart is. And Walmart having the power of the online channel to help them drive their physical sales too.
So what is the long game with this? What they're buying, I think it was like 30 companies they've bought. What is the long game with Walmart and all these digital companies?
Knowing your customer, being able to know your customer so that you can capture a greater share of their wallet in any channel that they seek to go. And so the Jet customer isn't getting a Walmart box, they're getting a Jet box.
Right.
And I think that's the difference. Technology is going to be a theme for 2019. AI, virtual reality, you name it, but every company is going to be more sophisticated in how they use it.
Got it. So one of the groups that we've done a lot of business with, we still continue to do business with, is the off-price world. So the TJ Maxx's, the Burlingtons, Home Goods, Ross Dress for Less. First, can you talk to us about, we hear all these different things, off-price, outlet, discount. Can you give us a little education on what the difference between at least those three are?
Yep. Off-price is an amazing concept. And Ben Camerata was really the founder of the off-price world as he basically founded TJ Maxx. What makes off-price so powerful, they're buying brands from vendors and buying well-known brand names, and some of these vendors are making goods specifically for them. As the top 5 or top 10 customers of a lot of these vendors have changed over the past 5 to 10 years, off-pricers have moved up in stature and moved up in terms of importance. It's no longer just the Macy's of the world, the Nordstroms of the world, or the Kohl's of the world, but TJX, Burlington, and Ross matter. They matter because they're in locations that offer convenience. They matter because they purchase goods and there's no markdown dollars that are accorded to it. And they matter because they're expanding the categories that they sell. Did you know that Home Goods, as part of TJX, has inventory turns that are turning nearly 17 times? So that's off-price. They buy goods from vendors that can either be excess or goods made specifically for them. Now you think about outlet. What's different about outlet? And it's funny, when I became an analyst many years ago, I got the first tour of outlet centers from Stanley Tanger, Steve's father, and then Steve Tanger also. And they were located outside of city centers, so not today what people are looking for in terms of convenience and speed, and you had goods that were made specifically for those outlets. And some would say that the goods that were made for those outlets may not touch the quality of what the goods were in off-pricers, because those are goods that may just be excess that would be sold off from department stores. Outlets are certainly still relevant. I take it you're going to Woodbury Commons tomorrow. Did I hear and see that on Black Friday there was literally 4-mile lineup just to be able to get to the entrance to the parking lot of Woodbury Commons? So there are the very special outlet centers that continue to be out there, but very different because a retailer has to want to invest their own dollars, hire their own staff in order to be a retailer and not just a manufacturer. And then when I think of discounters, discounters basically can buy name brand product but are selling it at lower prices, and boy do they buy it in quantity. And a lot of these discounters, whether it's Walmart or whether it's Target, are doing collaborations at certain price points that hit a more moderate income consumer. Got it.
Awesome. So we've been reading a lot about the mall of the future, what the mall of the future looks like. I feel fortunate we don't own any enclosed malls. What's the neighborhood center of the future look like? We own a lot of grocery anchored centers. We own a lot of centers with TJ, Burlington. What's that going to look like in 10, 15 years?
Very relevant. And the reason why it's very relevant, because you're offering consumers convenience. You're taking more of their time, whether it's with food and grocery, whether it can be with movie theaters in some senses, whether it's off price and apparel, or whether it's these new escape rooms that are out there that we're beginning to see more of, or whether it's service providers, like all of a sudden the blow-dry hair salons. Did you hear what Dry Bar is opening now? Their new concept is called Squeeze, which is the new massage offering that they're going to have. Have you heard about that one?
Yeah, we saw that.
Yeah, something new. So I think basically the center of the future, it's going to be able to have activities in addition to just purchasing of goods. And I think overall, it's going to have less apparel than what we've seen in the past. Have you heard about neighborhood goods?
I have.
I think it's pretty cool. Do you?
Very cool concept where they have all these new goods coming to the store that are unique, new up and coming, like startup, direct to consumer guys.
And it changes frequently, because
yeah.
then you don't bore the consumer.
Yeah, that's what. We need some innovation in some of these retailers. I'm excited to see Walmart doing stuff. I'm excited to see Target doing stuff. But one of the things I think that will separate people is things like DSW, what they're doing with the manicures and all this other stuff. We need some innovation. So
look what Ulta does with their
Ulta,
salons.
awesome.
Pretty exciting.
Yeah.
I think we need to see some new things on the jewelry front. The Signets and the Jareds. There's
Sure.
work to be done there.
Totally. So one of the other areas that we own a lot in is the grocery sector.
Mm-hmm.
Amazon bought Whole Foods. There's all these niche specialty grocers that are growing. They're all taking share from the traditional supermarket. But what else is going on in the supermarket world these days?
I think there's a lot going on in the supermarket world. All of a sudden, the supermarkets with prepared foods and what they're doing with prepared foods, they become much more relevant. All of a sudden, it's not just these, what Blue Apron does. You see people do that for 8 or 10 times, and then they give it up because the speed and the convenience isn't there. You're seeing a lot of supermarkets today have in supermarket restaurants and convenience areas that are making it more differentiated than it's been before. And have you seen Wegmans where all of a sudden they have wine tasting rooms where you have the wine tasting? Or I was in a Target in Denver with Brian Cornell, the CEO of Denver, and that's the same thing that they're adding. There's different components and there's an expansion of categories that are becoming more relevant. And whether it's different types of cuisines, whether it is the ability to have cooking fairs and basically show people how to cook with classes, that's what's the differentiating factor.
Got it. So, can you talk to us a little bit? I think the elephant in any brick and mortar company is Amazon. So, they just bought Whole Foods and they continue to grow. They're finally making a little bit of money. So what happens with Amazon? What happens? It feels like it's Amazon versus everyone else right now. I don't know what your take is, but that's what it feels like when I'm reading and when you're talking to retailers. It feels like everyone versus Amazon. So what's going on with Amazon right now?
So Amazon, I think overall, they're going to take the place of some of the department stores because you're seeing more brands now sell into Amazon, like the Nikes of the world or even like the Chicos of the world. But what you need to do is they need to have their own separate web shop there, and frankly, some goods that are differentiated than what they sell elsewhere. Because if not, then what Amazon is going to do is just copy them. The physical footprint of why Amazon bought Whole Foods overall, we think is because whether it's prepared food, whether it's delivery, whether it's being able to be more competitive on price in a very big category, we think that's really what Amazon did. Now Amazon has a partnership with Kohl's, where nearly 100 Kohl's stores, any return is being accepted in Kohl's that is purchased on Amazon. So I've been in a lot of those Kohl's stores where they have a counter that accepts Amazon returns. Does anyone want to guess what the biggest category, the most frequent category of returns is that is accepted at an Amazon counter in Kohl's? Any guesses?
Electronics?
Shoes. It's shoes because people typically buy multiple shoes in different sizes. Okay, now in 6 of the Kohl's stores that I've been in, the weirdest thing that I've heard of what has been bought on Amazon but returned to Kohl's. Would anyone want to guess about the strangest thing?
Come on, everyone. Strangest thing.
Strangest. Toilet bowls. Toilet bowls to that Kohl's counter. Who would have ever thought?
That's very interesting.
So I think next up for Amazon is more physical purchases. We know that they looked at Nordstrom, but obviously that was too few stores, too enclosed. With Kohl's having nearly 1,100 stores, having some excess space that now they're all of a sudden leasing to some of the supermarkets out there, and Planet Fitness is going to be another customer of Kohl's where they're going to sublease space to. We think that could be basically of interest, yes.
Interesting. So I think the last topic, so one of the hottest trends right now is direct to consumer, right? Every online startup is direct to consumer. You see if you go to New York City, Dyson's opened up all these stores. We just did a deal with Tide Dry Cleaners, so Procter & Gamble. What's going, we think that's going to help. Duluth Trading, we were talking about direct to consumer. I just went and spent more than my wife would like to admit at Duluth Trading. But so what is the future of direct to consumer? Is that going to continue? And does that hurt some of the Walmarts of the world going forward?
I think we need newness and we need excitement, because we haven't had a lot of new brands out there except for online, and now that online's going physical, and the fact that they know they have to go physical in order to gain the awareness is only going to lead to more excitement. Their boxes are small that some of them are taking, and that's why you have concepts, whether it's Hi-O, whether it's neighborhood goods, there are these new concepts that are having multiple of these online e-tailers figure out how to create their physical presence. We're seeing at least around 850 online e-tailers open physical stores, and we only think that's going to continue to grow, because when they open a store, it gets the sales lift, and when they close a store, they get impacted on the online sales by not having that physical presence. So it's a help to them, it gives them more customers, gives them more awareness. It may start in big cities and then go to smaller cities also, but that's the way that companies are going to do business.
That's exciting. What is, I think my litigation team would be disappointed if they didn't ask, who are they going to be worried about come January after Christmas? Who are the retailers that are going to file? Who's on our watch list?
So it's interesting, because when you think of who's on the watch list and who's not, outdoor center retailers, strip center retailers, the box retailers, are much less of a concern than what you have going on in the malls these days. When you think about what's going on inside the malls, that's more of a concern. The Expresses of the world are weaker than they've been in a long time. We have a ton of closures that are probably going to come up. A little bit from Signet, Gap stores is going to close some stores. But the growth is coming from the dollar stores, the off-pricers, the Ultas of the world, the Party Cities of the world, Michael's stores, At Home. That's where I'm seeing the growth. Where I'm seeing the concerns, and the other one out there, everyone's going to be watching JCPenney very closely. Because when you think about Sears, it was only a matter of when, not if. But the length of time that you're going out of business sales, it impacts the other retailers for that moment in time too. So we'll all be watching JCPenney's, although they don't have debt due for another 1.5 or 2 years, it's going to be a concept that we watch closely.
Got it. 2019, you touched on it a little bit. Number one trend in 2019 as a consumer. What's going to happen as a consumer? Number one trend.
Technology. What is technology going to do for you that's going to personalize the experience so that instead of the customer going to the store is going to the customer
Did you go to the Nike flagship yet?
Love it. Every single floor. Pretty cool, wasn't it?
I've been reading, I've seen it, I haven't gone, I gotta go. I want to try on every shoe, but...
You can order shoes online, it'll be like the second floor lockers. You can downstairs, there's a line just to get the color shoelaces that you want. It's the most technologically innovative store.
Awesome.
What about Amazon Go? Did you go to the 4-star store?
I went to the one in Chicago. I went to Amazon Go. That was a terrible consumer experience for me. I think they got a lot of work to do. I had to download the app. I couldn't use the Amazon app. I was playing outside, and for a store that was supposed to be like humanless, there was a gazillion employees there. I found it uncomfortable.
What about the 4-star store?
I haven't been to the 4-star store yet.
Has anyone been to the 4-star store? So the 4-star store is things that consumers rate 4 or higher. And I was talking to a salesperson there, because that's what I do. I talk to salespeople. That's how I learn everything. You know what one of their most popular items for holiday season is so far? People's gifts are drones for $1,000. Drones is like the new cool gift. Does anyone have any drones? No drones. Okay.
Drones.
Oh, you have a drone?
Yeah.
So I grade everything on a 1 to 10 because I like numbers. 10 means it's the best, 1 means it's the worst. What's your number for your drone?
Oh, probably not. Probably like a 3.
So you need it to do more.
Yeah.
All right. So thank you. That was awesome. So want to open it up for a couple minutes for questions. We kind of went all over the map to kind of touch on every sector in retail that we deal with. Anyone have any questions for Dana? I feel like this is a unique opportunity. Go ahead, Donna.
Hi.
I'll give people the mic.
I'm gonna put my glasses on too. Hello.
Hi.
In all of your travels throughout the world, what are you seeing in the shopping center business compared to what we have here in the United States? Meaning, about the enclosed malls, are they going away? Are they looking for the workplace shop? I know it depends on, of course, the different, areas, but what are you seeing it transferring over to?
So I was in London recently, and I met with Hammerson there. I met with the CFO of Hammerson. And there's new things that they're trying. They have a concept that's a beach concept that literally has sand in the center where they're basically showing people how to go surfing. But there's the Sky Zone things, so the trampolines that all of a sudden we're seeing. We're definitely seeing more city street locations, not enclosed malls. Typically when I go to Europe or when I go to Tokyo, I'm going to Tokyo probably, we're still deciding, for like 3 days at the end of the year. But it's city street locations. Adam, that's what I do. It's because I have to be back by the open and it's like the 3 days. But I walk every single area. And so that's what I'm seeing. It's much more city street locations. You're seeing definitely online only retailers. Europe overall is very much behind the times in terms of off-price. We're much more ahead of off-price here than what they are there. And they're first trying to learn how to figure out how to promote profitably because they haven't had that as much before. We do have over there also some new concepts with some of the fast fashion retailers opening new concept, but the H&Ms of the world here have not been as successful and there's work to do. The new types of stores that are opening, and it's funny, I've had 3 companies come to us that we're meeting with. These cannabis stores and health and wellness, what we've seen from MedMen, what we've seen from CityMD or UrgentMD, the ability to be able to fulfill more functions than ever before is basically what we're seeing.
Go ahead.
So in regards to that, you're talking about the beach and
Right.
and all of the experience basically. What is your thought of the new concept that's coming to Miami, the American Dream? And talking about that and also talking about Mall of America. How are those concepts going to withstand with the malls going away basically?
I mean, I think overall, when you think about Mall of America, and years and years ago when I was in the Mall of America, I'll never forget, all of a sudden I'm on one end of the mall, you see all these police rushing in, and there was a shooting on the other side, and you couldn't even hear it because it was so big. And also, during all that time, they've always had roller coasters and Ferris wheels, things like that have been in Mall of America. But now you need new activities and new adventures to basically entice people with. What it really says is that there needs to be a constant reinvestment to keep the interest of the core customer. I think the American dreams of the world, like what you're having in Miami, what's being built here in New Jersey, it'll be interesting to see if they'll be able to attract as many customers as they need to warrant the investment.
Who else has a question? George Clooney, twin. John Costia.
Hi, John Costia, I'm in leasing. So you talked a little bit about Amazon, you touched on tariffs. What do you see as a big threat for retail that maybe other people are missing and not really reporting on?
So I think what the threat for retail is being able to use that technology and learn from it. And the reason why is it's very easy to have all this data, but there's always only 3 key points that being able to work and move it forward. I think one of the things that we're seeing in retail is we're seeing a lot of leadership changes. Look at the leadership changes that were recently announced with Victoria's Secret, where they have a new president of Victoria's Secret brands. So brands get stale if you don't reinvent, remodel, and re-merchandise, because then you could be at the top of the roller coaster. And so what I'm seeing is that some of these retailers who just have the same old, and are relying on the same types of promotions, they better be able to change. Because if not, they're going to be left in the dust by some of these new brands that are out there all of a sudden. This brand list that I got invited to the opening, or I'm going to the opening. The opening's this Saturday, but I'm on the West Coast this Saturday, so next week. This new concept called Camp. Have you heard of Camp before? Have you heard of Camp, Chris?
I haven't heard Camp.
Camp is opening on, it's a 3-month pop-up. It's opening on 16th and 5th, and basically it has food and it has camp activities all of a sudden that they're bringing indoors for people during the weekend. I think you need those types of activities. But what are you gonna miss besides tariffs? If you don't use technology to learn from and educate you, and if you don't have leaders who are willing to change.
Sure. Thank you.
Wow. Who else? Who else has a question? Bled.
Hi, Blake Bradley, Asset Management.
Hi.
So I think that most people in this room and most people in the industry would agree that we're probably closer to the next recession than we'd like to be. So when that shoe inevitably does drop, are there any segments, any themes, any trends that you see that worry you, particularly as it pertains to specific retailers or just general themes that we're seeing in the industry?
When you think about, I'm actually part of this economist group, and it's a pretty big group of economists, and essentially their thoughts on the timing of the next recession, second half of 2019 into 20. The concepts that get impacted by it, I mean, certainly you're hearing a little bit about housing slowdown right now, and so that's being watched very, very carefully. I'd say department stores get impacted because they don't have the wherewithal to be as current as they used to be in the past, and they're not as relevant to the millennial customers as they were. I think also when you think about the discounters, the off-pricers, I think they stay relevant because it's always about the fact that poor people need a bargain, rich people love a bargain, and they become they drive better sales, and they'll be able to take better advantage of product availability that's out there. I think the supermarkets will benefit, but I'm seeing that when I have weaker concepts, it's going to negatively impact some of these weaker concepts. And whether it's been the Stage Stores of the world, whether it's been the Steinmarts of the world, that's where you're going to see share be able to be taken from.
Who else? Other questions?
Up front.
In all departments. Sean.
Yeah. I can just shout. I think she can hear me, but.
They can.
So yeah, just curious about the toy sector. Is it coming back? Is it being reinvented? Where does that go?
Given Toys R Us departure, and keep in mind, Toys R Us did almost $5 billion in sales in the fourth quarter. And when you think about that $5 billion in sales, and one of the surprises that's happening in toys this year, you know who's increasing their exposure in square footage to toys more so than we've ever seen in the past? It's the off-pricers. I was walking to Burlington the other day, and right in the front of the store there was toys. So I went up to a salesperson and I'd say, wow, this is bigger than we've ever seen. They've more than doubled the amount of space that they're allocating to toys. And so what are they moving in order to be able to have this much toy exposure? Tops, women's blouses. So that's what they've pushed to the side, figuring that women will always go to look for the blouses, but the toys it's the off-pricers who are gaining share. Targets and Walmart are also gaining share too, but one of the things with the category of toys, it's just like the nursery category. There's 6-week categories. They bend and flex based upon the popularity and the seasonality of the business. So we'll see it continue to be very dominant through Christmas, and then they'll shrink the size of that department.
Couple more.
Question for you. You mentioned earlier that you were seeing that same-store sales ultimately sales are going up towards year end, right? So
Yep.
what's the main drivers of that? Is it volume sales and driving up, the numbers, or is it better inventory management, better, margins, or is it better product?
Couple things. When you think about holiday 2018, the expectation for holiday sales from the National Retail Federation is 4.3 to 4.8%. We think that's conservative. We think it'll probably be a number of around 5% or 5.2%.
Wow.
What's driving it's a good number.
Yeah.
And frankly, that comes on top of last year when holiday season sales were up 5% also. It was one of the best years last year that we've had since 2010, 2011. What's driving it today? Inventory levels are clean, although some companies are now beginning to bring in goods early in the fear that there will be tariffs expanded to other categories. But you know what it is? It's that there's more product innovation out there. There's items that people want to buy. When you look at the components of what drives same-store sales, there's always 3 things. It's average unit retail, and I will tell you that average unit retail prices are holding steady. There's a less promotional environment. When I spoke to Roger Rollins at DSW this morning, part of the way they got that 7% comp was less promotional selling. American Eagle tonight, less promotional selling. Second thing that drives it is units per transaction. And I'd say, if anything, the AUR is higher, units per transaction is flat to down, because they'd rather spend on the quality of good rather than just the quantity of good. And when you think about conversion, it's up. And so I'm seeing the number of transactions and just traffic patterns stable to slightly up from what they've been last year at this time. You're in the lull period.
Just tell people what you mean by conversion, because I'm not sure they.
So when they walk in the store, if you walk in and walk out, you don't walk out with a shopping bag. When you convert, you're holding a shopping bag. So I think of that as buying something. And we're seeing some better conversion trends now. Black Friday overall in that weekend was pretty decent. You're in the lull period now. 40% of holiday season sales typically occurs between December 15th and the 25th. So it's coming.
It's coming. One more question. Laura.
I'm a property manager, Laura Parker.
Hi.
So, from a property manager standpoint, as a consumer, before you even go inside those stores, what do you look at as you're just driving in?
Okay, so I look at a couple things. As a consumer, I'm looking at the parking lot, see is it full, is it not full, what is it? I'm looking at what do the windows look like? Are there promotions or are there not promotions? I have this left, middle, right that I look at, and that's in a store where I look, what are they showing me in the left, the middle, and the right? Because those are the key things in the store. Is it promotional or not? When I'm looking at a center, are there kiosks or are there not kiosks? What are they doing with those kiosks? What's the food offering in the center? All of a sudden, if you put supermarkets in some of the centers, well, so some of the food courts don't do as well. But these supermarkets have become much more compelling in terms of their prepared foods and their product offerings. I'm looking at cleanliness. It's funny, I'm friends with Michael Gould, who is the former CEO of Bloomingdale's. And one of the things we always talk about, how clean are the bathrooms? I mean, it may sound like a dumb thing, but people do watch and they judge based upon the cleanliness of those bathrooms, and that matters also. So it's easy in, easy out, it's the access, it's the convenience that's there, it's what's the staffing look like, it's the lighting in some instances too, because does it make the center look ugly or nice? What's the signage? Is it painted freshly? Those are some of the things that we watch all the time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, I know there's two more people dying for questions.
No
two
worries.
more. Go ahead, Georgia.
Hi, Georgia Carrera, Asset Management.
Hi.
Just wanted to kind of piggyback off what Lara was asking about. You were giving us kind of your, call it top 10 of what you're looking at when you're evaluating a center. Can you give us also from an analyst view, when you evaluate a retailer, and if, we're looking at their balance sheet, we're sitting on their quarterly calls and reviewing 10Qs, can you walk us through kind of your key metrics and points that you're evaluating
Sure.
to determine and glean insights beyond kind of the typical that people would expect, sales volume increasing, store openings? What else are you looking at based on your experience so we can also glean insights, predictions into the new year?
Thank you. So I look at sequential and I look at forward. When I talk about sequential and forward, so I want to see, when they talk about their sales growth, well, what was their sales growth the last quarter and what is it this quarter? Was it up 12% last quarter and up 15% this quarter? What was the drivers? I look at the gross margin dollars, because that's what goes to the bank. And when you think about gross margin, that's the profit after the cost of goods sold. So today, and very top of mind, because I just did the math, American Eagle basically, and DSW, they had like 5% total sales growth, but their gross margin dollars are up 7%. So what that tells me is that, okay, they're getting more profitability on their sales, leading to more full price sales. I'm looking at inventory, and I watched year over year, so the inventory, if this was the October quarter, October's 2017 inventory number, October 2018, what was the rate of increase? I want to know that the sales growth is faster than the inventory increase. Because if your sales are up 15% and your inventory is up 10%, you have a better shot at having more profitable sales. But if my inventory is up 20% and my sales are up only 10%, oh boy, am I going to have to mark down goods as we go into the upcoming quarter. I'm looking at square footage growth. What did they grow square footage at, and what do they have coming up in the next quarter? Because that's going to help me evaluate what's their expenses going to be and how much do they need to increase based upon how many new stores are they opening. I'm looking at what is the brick and mortar sales increase and what is the online sales increase. A lot of companies won't tell you that, but you can get around that. And you get around that by asking them, tell me about your conversion. Tell me about your number of transactions. Were your number of transactions up or down? And then you'll be able to get more color as to what's in the physical store versus what's in online. The other things I always want to know about, what's the new marketing and advertising campaign? If they're not willing to invest, then they don't have a product that they believe in. And that's something we ask about all the time too. And then there's guidance, because a lot of these companies put out forward guidance. So here, you had American Eagle just put out guidance essentially that's 40 to 42 cents. The consensus number for the upcoming quarter is 48. They're saying 7 cents of it is because you had a 53rd week last year, so they would have done 41 cents last year. 41 cents last year instead of the 48. But you want to know what that guidance is and what is it relative to consensus. In the stock market world, it lives, breathes, and dies based upon the forward guidance. So in my world, I'm looking at the sales growth, I'm looking at what they're doing with their gross margin dollars, I'm looking at what they're doing with inventory to see if they're well positioned going forward. When you think about the long-term future, it's about the balance sheet. And most of our retailers were fortunate. They're cash rich. They're cash rich, so you don't have a lot of balance sheet worries with a lot of these retailers because they're just so productive in terms of the sales per square feet that they generate and the profits that they generate.
Wow, that was awesome. Last question, Hannah, go ahead. I know you've been raising your hand back here.
Thank you. Hannah, leasing.
Hi.
Hi. So it seems like a lot of retail companies are acquiring other companies. From your point of view, do you see companies horizontally integrating like retailers such as DSW acquiring a brand like Vince Camuto versus horizontally integrating like Walmart acquiring Jet.com? Suggest that company's doing healthier, is promoting a healthier strategic initiative than another. So basically, do you think that companies horizontally integrating or vertically integrating is a better route to go in the future?
I think we're going to see more acquisitions and more integration occur. I think part of the reason why is a lot of these companies, they need the talent inside in order to think about how to grow and how to expand. So I knew Vince Camuto for a very long time, and that's a very special company. When Vince Camuto was alive, he was the original shoe dog. And when you think about what a shoe dog is, it was the most embarrassing thing. He'd look at every woman's foot and basically look at their shoes and say, oh, and he'd either make that shoe again in a different pattern or a different color, and he had just great vision. Vince Camuto passed away in 2015, and they have a terrific team there, and what they bring to DSW is they bring the power of private label, about making the private label product and with the Brazilian factories that Camuto has, and for Camuto and DSW to basically gain sales and gain share and gain increased profitability. Right now, Aldo does all the manufacturing for DSW private label, so that'll switch over to Camuto. But your question is, is there going to be more? And yes, there will be more. And the reason why? Companies have the capital to be able to allocate to acquisitions, build versus buy. A lot of times the talent that you can buy is there, and you're seeing companies being able to take advantage of this young talent. PVH bought True & Company and Intimate Apparel. You're seeing, for example, Walmart buying all those companies, and there's more to go. So I think we're going to continue to see integration. I think that it'll be more manufacturers and retailers or online e-tailers and retailers rather than just manufacturer to manufacturer. And I think companies like G3, which manufactures licenses for Donna Karan, for Tommy Hilfiger, for Calvin Klein, I think they could be bought by other manufacturers, and you'll have platform companies like what an LVMH is or what a Kering is. So we're going to have a world of acquisitions going forward.
All right, everyone. Well, thank you, Dana.
Thank
Why don't
you
we give
very
her a
much.
round of applause?